But if all you're hearing is mortgage rates are going up, which is a lot of what you see, then that's going to make you panic. But actually, for some people, they're not going to be impacted. So one of the things that we really pride ourselves on doing is giving information, giving education, giving guidance, helping you understand what's going on so that you can make really informed choices for yourself and for your family and for your situation.
Hi, and welcome to Helping People Perform, the podcast that gives you fascinating insights into those people whose chosen vocation is to help others perform at their best. From consultants to teachers, sports coaches to financial advisors, all of my guests share a passion for getting the most out of individuals, teams, and organisations. Enjoy the episode. Hi everyone, and welcome to yet another episode of the Helping People Perform podcast, where I'm speaking to some amazingly interesting people about their stories and their take on who they help perform and how. Today, I'm joined by mortgage advisor and financial educator at The Mortgage Mum. Welcome to the show, Funmi Olafunwa.
Hi Paul, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Oh, thanks for coming on, Funmi. It's a pleasure to have you. So we've got a load to talk about. We've just been talking about mortgage rates and all sorts of interesting stuff prior to the show. But could you just give us a little bit of background in terms of what you've done to get you to where you are today?
Yeah, sure. So, as you mentioned, I'm a mortgage advisor and a financial educator, but I haven't always been. My first career was actually in law. So I trained as a lawyer, started in 2003 now, so a very, very long time ago, 20 years ago. And I trained in a city firm in London, started off at a city firm called Simmons & Simmons. I trained there for 2 years, and then I qualified into their commercial team. So I was doing sort of commercial contracts, being very large corporates, and I started to get quite interested in finance when I got involved in a pro bono case, and that means basically where law firms do legal advice for free. Right. So I was involved in one of these cases, and it involved a credit agreement, and I don't know why, but it just kind of took my interest. And then I wanted to try and start doing more of it within the firm. But unfortunately, there wasn't a huge demand for it at that particular firm. So I thought, well, if this is what I want to do and they don't have it here, I'm going to go and see where else they have it. So I found a firm that did have a department that specialised in that. And I applied to that firm. And fortunately, I was successful. And that was a law firm called Adelshaw Goddard. And I was there for another 5 years. And I did a combination of working at the law firm, but I also was really lucky and fortunate enough to do a couple of client secondments. Right. So that's where you get sent to a client. So I've been sent to a couple of the big banks and worked in their in-house legal teams.
Oh, nice. And
then, I'm going to be honest, I kind of got the taste for in-house life because generally the hours are slightly nicer. So I actually ended up leaving the law firm that I was at and going to work at the client that I'd been on secondment to. Stayed there for a few years. And then I actually thought that I didn't want to do law anymore. So I had a little bit of a break, had a little bit of think about what I wanted to do. And whilst I was thinking about what I wanted to do, I started contracting. So I was working in various different organisations, sort of a year at a time. And then actually realised, I quite like the flexibility of contracting. I quite like the flexibility of knowing that you've got a project for a particular period of time, and then you can move on. So I did that for the next sort of good few years. And then I had a baby. So I had some time off with her. And then I actually went back and started a permanent job because there was a really attractive opportunity. There was a company that was going to do all the things that I actually wanted to do, was combining many of my sort of passions. So it was education, which has always been really, really important to me.
Yeah.
Personal finance, and basically helping people, trying to help people improve their personal finances. And I thought, brilliant, this is exactly the organisation for me. So I joined that organisation and was there for just under a year. And I wasn't getting to do enough of what I wanted to do. Right. And so I thought, you know what, I've kind of got this thing within me that I want to do something. I'm looking for all of these organisations to provide it for me. But why don't I actually just provide it for myself? So I took the leap, I quit my job. Lots of people thought I was I was not thinking straight at that time. And I decided to set up on my own. So I set up a business called Hoops Finance, provides financial education and well-being to individuals and groups and corporates. And as part of those discussions, what I kept on finding, and one area that people really struggled with when it came to their finances, was getting a mortgage.
Right.
They found the process really overwhelming, confusing, didn't really know where to start, didn't know how to save, just had so many questions.
Right.
And there didn't seem to be anywhere that they could go to kind of get all of those answers. And I thought to myself, well, I can help you answer the questions. The thing I can't do, though, is help you with, the actual mortgage application, which is obviously quite a significant part of buying a property.
Yeah.
And so I thought, okay, well, why don't I qualify as a mortgage advisor? Then I can do both. So that's what I did.
Yeah.
And that's what I've been doing ever since. So I'm a mortgage advisor by day, but also what is also really important to me is that I provide that financial education to my clients and also people who aren't necessarily my clients yet as well.
Oh, wonderful. And one bit I'd love to pick up on a little bit there, you talk about that passion for education. And, I noticed you use the word, certainly in your websites and things, about demystifying things for your clients. What is it that drives that passion for you? Why is education and financial education so important for you?
I think it's because our personal finances and the topic of money, it's all around us. We can't live our lives without factoring in that money plays a huge part. We have to pay our bills. We have to work unless we're lucky enough to be lottery winners, I guess. Yeah. We have to work. And I just found that people didn't necessarily think as much as maybe they could do about their money. They didn't think about the things that money could do for them and the ways in which they could use it.
Right.
And also because of the work that I've done within banks, I'd often work with, right through the stages of different products and services. So right from the inception, you've got the product team, they come up with a great idea, a new product, and I worked with them at that end. But right the way through to, for example, if it was a credit type product, if somebody got into a bit of financial difficulty, they couldn't pay, they were in arrears, I'd be working with the teams that would be looking after those people. So the collections teams and the recoveries teams. And what I was seeing through that work is that there seemed to be a lot of people who just didn't really understand how the products that they had and were using worked. So it's not surprising then that in some instances they got themselves into a bit of financial difficulty. So I'm not saying that financial education would mean that nobody is ever in arrears and nobody gets into a tricky situation, because, life happens, right? There's things happen that mean that maybe we can't pay our bills, maybe we lose a source of income, maybe we're not able to work for a period of time. But what I do think is that knowledge plus action is power. And I think that there's people that lack the knowledge, or they lack the confidence to be able to take action. So that's kind of my little, my formula that I like to use. Knowledge plus action equals power.
Wonderful. And do you find that your combination of the legal training and moving into finance, does that give you a different angle, a different perspective on things that maybe your competition doesn't have, or others may not have if they've purely been in the finance space?
I think I'm used to reading long documents,
right.
So that probably helps. I think one thing though that is actually quite useful is that I think a lot of people think that lawyers should or do talk in really long or unnecessarily long, they use unnecessarily long words. They use, language that's not easily understandable. And I have come across lawyers like that. But actually, what we're really encouraged to do as a lawyer is use really clear, simple, easy to understand language.
Yeah.
And I think in an area like finance, there is often quite a lot of financial or technical jargon that when you're used to working in an industry, you kind of just assume that everybody knows and understands. So you find yourself falling into using, 3-letter acronyms that you and your team know and everyone in finance knows, but anybody that's not in finance is thinking, I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
But they also don't necessarily have the confidence to say, I don't know what you're talking about, because maybe they feel like they should. So one of the things I think that actually working in law first has actually helped with is making sure that whenever I'm speaking to somebody, I am using really clear, easy to understand, simple English. And I'm really aware of the fact that I need to make sure that they can understand what I'm telling them.
Right.
I was once told, if somebody can't understand something, it's not their fault. It means that you haven't explained it properly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, and I had that experience myself from a career perspective. I had my career mainly in food manufacturing and improvement work, and I took a role in a bank when I was living in New Zealand. This was, and I went in there to help them bring a different perspective and look at performance, internal performance in business banking, which is essentially small scale in New Zealand. It's sort of mom and pop businesses, but it's the biggest area, or certainly the biggest volume over in New Zealand in particular. So the majority of that was mortgages and home loans, as well as business loans and credit cards and things like that. And I found myself going, right, I think I know what a mortgage is. I've had one before. I think I know what this is. And still I was bamboozled by the whole thing. So yeah, it's a difficult world to understand, and one that we don't seem to get educated in until we need to, and even then we don't necessarily get educated in, do we? Speaking from my own experience, I remember home economics classes, which were cooking something or maybe doing a bit of sewing, and I'm sure there was 1 or 2 lessons on finance, but can't remember them at all. That financial education from an early stage and continuing on to when it's needed is it's a real gap in our society, isn't it?
Oh, 100%. So yeah, it's funny. It's called home economics. I saw somebody say recently, it's called home economics, but where's the economics? I didn't learn economics. I learned things that I could potentially do at home, like cook or, like you said, sew. But there was no element of, this is how you run a home from a financial perspective. Yeah. This is how you pay bills. This is how you read your pay slip, which is something that is so fundamental because we work and we get paid. But actually, when did anybody teach us how to read a pay slip? Teach us what a tax code is. Teach us how to know what tax code we should be on and what to do if we're not on it.
Yeah.
How to calculate tax. Why you should contribute to a pension. All of these things that are so fundamental to us and our day-to-day life and also our futures. And by and large, we're not really taught. So we're not really taught in a sort of a formal education setting, or certainly I wasn't. It sounds like you weren't either.
Same, yeah.
And I think what then happens is we are relying on parents or primary caregivers to give that education to their children.
Yeah.
And, lots of people do. But again, I would always say, but if they don't necessarily know, then what are they passing on? Is it the right things? But also, I think it's really good for people to learn in groups as well.
Yeah.
So that's why I really like the concept of classes or workshops, because I think if you can get people open up, you can start to understand different perspectives, because everyone does have a different perspective when it comes to money.
Yeah.
And, there's research that indicates that our sort of money habits and behaviours and beliefs are actually formed by the time we're 7. So not starting to be formed at 7, by the time we're 7. So the first few years of our lives, what we are seeing our caregivers say, do, behave around money, that is so crucial, because that then informs, our thinking, our beliefs and our behaviours. Now, it doesn't mean that can't change, but if we think about, can you remember what you were thinking about when you were 7? It wouldn't, it's all the unconscious stuff that you've taken in. that you may not then realise is why you're doing certain things, why you're behaving a certain way with money. So I think just having those discussions, open discussions, talking about things in groups and learning from different people and different people's perspectives. And that's why I think doing this in groups or in schools is such a great way to do it. And also it being taught by people who have the right skills and knowledge as well. Now, I love teachers. I absolutely think they do the most amazing job. But again, I don't think that this is something that should just be given to somebody saying, oh, you need to go and teach the kids about credit cards. Because actually, if you're a teacher and you don't really know about credit cards and you haven't been trained about how to teach people about credit cards, that's not fair on you. And it's also not fair on your students. So I do think that this needs to be taken seriously and done properly, and there needs to be some investment in it. Now, financial education, interestingly enough, is on the secondary school national curriculum.
Right.
But it's not, as far as I'm aware, it's not currently Ofsted inspected and it's not examined. So if you think about a school that's got all of its competing priorities, is a school going to focus on something like this that, it's worthwhile and it would be really valuable, but we're not going to be examined on it. The children aren't going to be examined on it. And when Ofsted comes around, that's not one of the key things they'll be looking for. Or am I going to focus on the things that I guess are more important in that sense? So I'm not blaming schools at all or teachers. I think there just needs to be more focus on this. There are groups that are trying to shine a light on this more. So, for example, I'm a member of the Financial Education Forum, and that's different financial services institutions and also organisations coming together, creating resources that then schools can use. There's something called My Money Week, which happens every year in June. So there are lots of people trying to kind of, improve financial education and literacy within the country, within the UK, but it's not as widespread as I would like it to be. And I would like it to be mandatory in all schools and not just secondary schools as well, because of the fact that those sort of beliefs and habits and behaviours can start to be formed at such a young age. Yeah,
indeed. Couldn't agree more on that one. And I know I'll be going back to my 9-year-old, my 5-year-old, and having some more conversations in that space off the back of this. So, so maybe that takes us nicely into what you do now. So tell us a bit more about the Mortgage Mum, what you do there, and any of the other great work that you do in the financial education space.
Yeah, so the Mortgage Mum is a brilliant, brilliant company founded by Sarah Tucker and Jamie Lewis. And we are a company of currently female mortgage advisors or female mortgage advisors. We are not exclusive, so if somebody is not female, and also they're not a mum, not everyone is a mum either, welcome to apply to join. Yep. But Sarah just kind of coined the name The Mortgage Mum, and it stuck, and it's a great name because everybody remembers it. Yep. And everyone always asks the question, do you have to be a mum? Do you only have to be a woman? And it starts the conversation, but we are very, very inclusive, so everybody is welcome to apply. We all currently work virtually. So one of the main reason why she set it up was because she wanted to still be able to work and have a family. She wanted to be able to work flexibly. And the current structure in several corporates just didn't really allow for that in the way that worked for her. So she thought, if it's not already there, then I'll build it. And she did. And we're now sort of 30 plus strong. Oh, nice. So we're all self-employed mortgage advisors, but we sort of work, as a team. Yeah. So we deal with all different types of clients, all different types of lending. So it could be a first-time buyer. It could be somebody who is wanting to move home. It could be somebody who's, on a mortgage deal that's coming to an end. It could be somebody with a buy-to-let property. Right. We'll help anyone and everyone, because we really, really believe that mortgages are more than just about money, and we think that we have the way in which we deal with our clients, we think is quite special, and our clients really seem to appreciate it. We're very flexible, we're very accommodating, and sometimes work out of hours to suit our clients, but also to suit us as well.
Yeah.
And we do a lot of hand holding, and people do, seem to really, really appreciate that. And we like to provide a balanced view. And this is something that I think is really, really important, actually. I think when you look at some of the things that are in the press, I think some of them can be quite, there can be quite a lot of scary headlines.
Yeah.
And, sometimes it panics people. Particularly at the moment, right? So just before we came on, we were talking about mortgage rates. So yesterday, Bank of England increased the base rates. Now, that will impact some people and it won't impact others. But if all you're hearing is mortgage rates are going up, which is a lot of what you see, then that's going to make you panic. But actually, for some people, they're not going to be impacted. So one of the things we really pride ourselves on doing is giving information, giving education, giving guidance, helping you understand what's going on so that you can make really informed choices for yourself and for your family and for your situation.
Wonderful. Yeah, I think that's sometimes I liken it a little bit to estate agents or other services like that, where you don't need a service until one particular moment in your life, but it's really important. And I find myself with a lack of trust in those situations where it's like, is the person who's given me this service, really acting in my best interests, or are they just out there for a bit more commission? And it's like, if you're telling me that as an estate agent, for instance, the asking price is going up, does that just mean you're saying that to get me to go up to give you a bit more commission, or are you actually trying to help me with this purchase? And it's a trust issue that's underlying in those areas, isn't it? That comes with honesty and openness and conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. I think trust is so key. And rightly or wrongly, trust in financial services generally, I don't think is as high as it would be nice if it was.
Yeah.
I think there have been various things that have happened in the past that maybe make people not really trust people who work in financial services, or think that people are working with their best interests at heart. So what we do is we really pride ourselves on developing relationships with our clients. We are on social media quite a lot because we feel that if people can sort of see us, see us speaking, see us how we talk about things, see our views on things, then that starts to build that element of trust and build up a rapport. So actually, by the time that they come to us and actually need to use us, maybe they feel like they know us a little bit, rather than if you don't, you don't know anyone at all, and then suddenly you rock up at the point when, oh, quick, I need to get a mortgage, and then you contact a pretty sort of faceless organisation and you get given someone to deal with. Now, I'm not saying that, if you work in an organisation that isn't on social media, there's something wrong with that, but it's just something that we feel is really important that we want to do. We want our clients to feel comfortable. We want them to trust us. We want to have a really good rapport with them. And being active on social media is one of the ways in which we do that.
Yeah, and that human factor and that human connection in any service element is massive, isn't it? And that's people are either going to buy from a trusted brand or a big corporation that they believe in that corporation and they deal with the person who's there at the time. But if you're on the smaller end of the scale, even though you're saying there's you've got a team of 30 odd different advisors with the mortgage mum, you're still quite a small scale one-on-one sort of service to people, then that trust and that relationship is absolutely key going forward, isn't it?
Yeah, 100%.
Wonderful. And so how do you help yourself perform? What are the things you do that keeps you as sharp as you can be, either on the professional side or, how do you learn and grow? What's your favourite ways to attack that?
So I am 100% geek and proud. I love learning. Right. I'm happy to say that to anyone.
Yeah.
I'm a bit like a magpie, like something new and I want to know about it. I just like to improve and know more, so I read a lot.
Right.
I also try and read, particularly when it comes to newspapers. I do try and read a variety of different newspapers because I think if you just read a particular paper all the time, you don't necessarily get to hear the views of different types of people who might not read that particular paper. Yeah. So I do think it's really important to try and have a really rounded experiences. So I try and read different types of papers, different types of media. I listen to heck of a lot of podcasts.
Yeah.
I don't drive, so I do a lot of walking,
Right.
and so I've always got a podcast in my ear. And then I try and learn from other people. So people all around me who are either at the same level as me or maybe a few steps ahead, but also, people that are younger, because I think that's really important, that things are changing. The way in which we've done things is not necessarily the way that we're going to keep doing things. And there's lots of new ways of doing things. There's new technology now. Look, I'm not a tech. I'm a geek, but I'm not a tech geek. So I'm often asking, oh, how does this work? But just being aware of what's going on,
right,
and being attuned to the fact that I don't necessarily know everything. No one really knows everything, and it's okay to ask if you don't know everything. But yeah, I like to. That's how I sort of like to learn. Keep learning, keep reading, and keep asking questions until you understand.
Yeah. Oh, it sounds like you're a big consumer, certainly of all sorts of different things. I think that element of different perspectives and consuming different perspectives is critical, not only for your own sanity to avoid those sort of echo chambers that you can find yourself in, but what I like about what you're saying there is your client base is potentially reading one or other, and probably only one or other, of various different media or newspapers or whatever that might be. So for you to understand what they're hearing and reading and seeing and feeling is only going to help you in terms of if it's one of the more, let's call it more fear mongering media that are out there, then you can get a feel for what is it that they're hearing, and are there any arguments that you've seen elsewhere to counteract that, to maybe help them understand a more rounded view.
Yeah, because I think balance is really, really important.
Yeah.
I think the financial services can often get a really bad rep. Banks and lenders can get a really, really bad rep. And one thing I think has really helped me is that, having worked in banks and in various lenders, I can understand why they've said or done certain things. It might be from a legal perspective, it might be from a regulatory perspective, but they might not come out and say, we are doing this because section blah of the Consumer Credit Act says we've got to do this. They'll just do it. And it might appear that action they've taken or thing they've not done might appear quite strange to somebody. So I like to try and provide balance. So if there's something that a lender has done, and it seems a bit odd and people, are not happy with it, I can then offer some reasons as to why that might be.
Yeah.
I think balance is really, really important. I think particularly when it comes to lending and borrowing money, I think that lenders have a responsibility when they lend, but also we as borrowers have a responsibility when we borrow. And sometimes I think that we don't necessarily sort of emphasize that point enough. Yeah. So I like to provide balance, and I like to find, when I'm speaking to clients, if I don't think that something's affordable to them, I will say, I don't think that this is the right decision for you.
Right.
Maybe you need to wait. Maybe you need to think about a smaller property. Because my main aim is to make sure that I give you good advice and that you stay in your property. Yeah. So if you can't afford what you want, then that's not going to be a long-term good decision for you. So I'm also quite honest. I like to think I deliver it in a kind way.
I think
I think as financial services, we need to be honest with people.
Yeah, I think with people, when they build that trust and that human connection, they will know that the position of advice you're coming from is one of care for their long-term outcome, and that's wonderful. Maybe a couple of slightly different questions then. If you were able to help any individual, team, or organisation with the skill set that you've got, who might you want that to be?
So I come across quite a lot of, I think, women who are busy raising a family, busy working hard. And I think that sometimes, not all times, but sometimes, making sure that they themselves are financially aware and financially secure maybe comes a little bit down in the priority list because they're putting other people before them.
Mm.
And so what I would love to do is make sure that and speak to basically all women. Obviously, I've been there quite a while, so quite a lot of us. But to kind of really kind of impress upon people the importance of looking after yourself financially.
Mm.
We hear about all other types of self-care, meditate, journal, have a nice long bath, whatever it is.
Yeah.
But I think taking care of yourself financially is actually one of the greatest forms of self-care that you can do for yourself, and you'll help not only yourself, but if you have a family, you'll also help your family. So, making sure that you are aware of, if, for example, you have a family, making sure that you're claiming all the things that you can claim if you're not working.
Right.
Making sure that you're keeping an eye on your pension contributions. If you're moving companies, you know where they all are so that they don't get lost.
Yeah.
Encouraging people to have the conversation about maybe sharing parental leave. We have shared parental leave in this country. So if you're in let's say a heterosexual couple, and I say that not because parental leave doesn't apply to other couples, but just because historically, when you look at the research, if you're in a heterosexual couple, the majority of the care, particularly when the children are very, very young, it will be the mother. That's what the stats say.
Yep.
But stepping out of the workforce for a little bit has an impact. It has an impact from a pension from a pension perspective, because you're working less. There's less time for you to contribute to your pension, which is then compounded by gender pay gaps, which exist.
Yep.
People are trying to close, but they exist at this moment. So imagine if when you were working, you were being paid less, but then actually you also work less because you've taken more time out to care, whether that's to care for children or for elderly relatives. So there are, I guess, challenges or additional hurdles that you might have to jump through. So just making people really aware of those and helping them think of ways to navigate that. Yeah.
And it is, as you say, that financial stability. It doesn't have to be massive wealth or anything like that, but it's a financial stability and understanding of where you are, where you're heading to. It can be such a driver, if you haven't got that, to other mental health issues, relationship issues, all sorts of different other pieces outside of just the finances themselves, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. There are such huge links between mental health and money. So Martin Lewis has set up this organisation. It's called the Money and Mental Health Institute, and they regularly conduct research and publish research that shows the very clear links between the two.
Right. Yeah. Oh, and if we were to switch that on its head a little bit in terms of if you were able to sit down with somebody, have a cup of tea, have a drink, have a meal, and sit down and chat with them in order to learn from them and up your own game, who would you want that to be?
So there was a lady that I used to work with when I actually went on one of my secondments in the bank. And I sort of, I'm not going to I say stalked, but we're connected on LinkedIn and I look at her page regularly. And she's just phenomenal. She has worked in so many different areas of the organisation. So she is a lawyer, but she has worked in product, she's worked in marketing, she's worked in ops. She's always sort of changing the areas. So obviously she's learning loads, and she's risen up the ranks, and she also has 4 children. Now, I'm one of 4, and I actually have 1 child myself, and I regularly question my mother on her decision to have 4 children, because having one, having just 1 is quite tricky.
Yep.
Let alone 4. Then this woman has 4, and she's doing all the things that she's doing. So, yeah, I mean, I'm pretty sure that there will be she's got a lot of support systems and good networks in place. But, even with that, it can't be easy. And I'd love to kind of sit down and chat about how she does it and sort of what drives her to keep going, because I can imagine she's probably quite tired.
Indeed. Indeed, it's quite a relationship challenge, isn't it? Just in terms of making sure you've got enough time with one, as you
Exactly,
say,
yeah.
never mind four. Wow. Lovely stuff. So finally, who should be reaching out to you, and how do they reach out to you, and how do they find you?
Okay, so in the question of who, if you are looking to buy property, I'd say at any point in the next couple of years, then I think it's always a good idea to speak to a mortgage advisor, because they can give you an idea of the types of lending that might be available to you. So what you don't want is to think or not even know anything about the mortgage industry, and then just rock up and think, hey, I'd like a mortgage for X,
Yeah.
and then at that point be told that that's not happening because, for example, your income isn't high enough for that to be a possibility for you. So I always say let's prepare. So plan and prepare, and the best way to do that is to speak to somebody in advance. So anyone who's looking to get onto the property ladder for the first time, but also anybody who's thinking of moving, so they'll maybe be getting a new mortgage, or they're actually got a mortgage at the moment, and their mortgages, they've got a fixed rate product, for example, that's coming up to an end. Basically, anybody who wants to either get a mortgage or has a mortgage and just maybe doesn't understand it, because there are so many people that are like, oh yeah, I've got a mortgage, I don't really understand how it works, I don't really know any of the stuff about it, because often we do, right? That's the boring bit.
Yeah.
Nobody really wants to think about the mortgage. The exciting bit is getting the house.
Yeah.
But the mortgage bit is very, very important. So you can outsource that to me. That's absolutely fine. I will do that. But yeah, you need to get in touch, and particularly at the moment, because I think over the past sort of 6 months or so, it has been quite a rocky time in our wider economy, and mortgage rates are often being discussed in mainstream media, and sometimes the headlines can be quite scary, I guess, if you're not involved in the industry and you don't really understand what it means for you. So I would always say, yes, read the papers, read the news, listen to the news and try and understand, but actually it's all going to be quite generic in the sense that nobody can say what that actually means for you personally.
Right.
So I would always encourage people to speak to an advisor at that time. And if they want to contact me, then they absolutely can.
Yep.
You can contact me, you can find me on Instagram. I am Funmi_the mortgage mum, or you can send me an email. I am funmi@themortgagemum.co.uk.
Fantastic, and I'll make sure those links are in the show notes so that people can reach out. So, an amazingly important and what some might not find interesting in the first instance, but once you start to peel it and understand what it means to you, an amazingly interesting field that can have such an impact on the rest of your life. So really enjoyed chatting for me, and thanks so much for being on the show today.
Thank you very much for inviting me.
Thanks for listening to today's episode. If you liked what you heard, then please give the podcast a rate, review and share. I'm Paul Teasdale, and from sausage making to banking, oil and gas to Formula One, I help people perform. If you'd like to find out more and have a conversation, contact me via helpingpeopleperform.com.